Today, many people of color are victims of internalized racism. Internalized racism is the internalization by people of racist attitudes towards members of their own ethnic group, including themselves. It's an individual's acceptance of a racial hierarchy. Internalized racist attitudes in individuals present barriers towards achievement of racial equality, as somebody with internalized racism may believe that he or she is inferior to people of other color and that equality is therefore not a logical goal. In Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, Morrison explores the idea of internalized racism and its influence on the African American community. By using several symbols, characters, and metaphors in her book, Morrison successfully achieves her task. Through the acknowledgement of Polly's tooth, the dandelions, and Claudia, Morrison successfully demonstrates that the way one views another influences the way that individual views him or herself. However, through willingness to accept one's identity, this is possibly avoidable. By using Polly's tooth as a metaphor in her novel, Morrison establishes that the way one views another influences the way that person views himself. Morrison writes about the moment Polly's tooth fell and the reason behind its fall. She suggests that there had to have been a speck that did not leave and instead sat on the enamel for months and grew until it cut to the surface. Then, eventually, it started to eat away the roots which led to the tooth falling. By demonstrating how Polly's tooth fell, Morrison illustrates that there is a deeper meaning behind her tooth. The brown speck represents the racist attitudes of whites towards the black community. This eventually led to the black community internalizing that racist attitude, like the speck got into the surface and started eating the roots of the tooth. When the roots were eaten, the tooth fell, leaving a ragged stump behind. Compared to when blacks lost consciousness of their value, they began to fall. Through comparing Polly's tooth to the black community, Toni Morrison establishes that one's view on an individual has a great influence towards the way that individual views him or herself.
Morrison also uses the grocery store scene in order to explain the racial self-loathing one goes through as a result of negative influence from those around him or her. In this scene, Picola's purchasing candy and she wonders why everyone considers dandelions so ugly. She finds them rather beautiful, yet she buys the Mary Jane anyway. As she encounters Mr. Jakubowski, she's greatly discouraged when he speaks harshly to her and tries not to touch her hand when she's passing over the money. This highly concerns and conflicts her. By trying to avoid Picola's hand, Jakubowski forces Picola to believe she's a contagious disease associated with the color of her skin. Ultimately, she comes to the realization that the dandelions are truly ugly, whereas the blonde, blue-eyed Mary Jane pictured on the candy wrapper is beautiful. This is a great example of how one man's action can easily damage another's views. Piccola finds it a necessity to hate the person that she is and comply with everyone else, evident as she decides that the Mary Jane is prettier. She initially thought that the dandelions are beautiful, but the thought, of course, changed when she got humiliated by Jakubowski. Mr. Jakubowski, therefore, causes Piccola to have altered views of herself and become ashamed of the person that she is. Hence, Piccola is convinced that she must conform to a society where she, an African American, is ugly, while white people are beautiful.
Furthermore, Morrison uses Claudia in order to establish that although one's view on an individual can influence that individual's view on themselves, this conflict is avoidable through accepting your identity. For instance, in the beginning of the book, as opposed to Piccola drinking milk out of the Shirley Temple cup and embracing the idea that whites are superior to African Americans, Claudia refuses to accept conforming to this society as she unhesitantly and viciously tears apart the white doll, indicating that she will not be influenced by those around her because she's not afraid to accept her identity, since the white doll symbolizes white superiority and influence in the African American's definition of beauty. Later, towards the end of the book, Claudia offers a glimpse of hope while proclaiming that she and other blacks were responsible for Piccola's death, by demonstrating frustration and anger towards the black community because they had used Piccola as a victim of their beauty rather than give her the love she deserved. Moreover, Claudia's anger transforms into an act of hope, proven as she attempts to sell her marigolds in order to possibly give life to Piccola's baby. This represents the new life that Morrison believes could avoid the conflict of internalized racism.
Lastly, Malcolm X's story of how he experienced internalized racism is evident as he grows up as the lightest-skinned family member. Growing up as the lightest-skinned child in the family, Malcolm's father shows favoritism towards Malcolm versus his siblings from being lighter skinned, which represents higher status. Malcolm used his superiority of being lighter skinned as he grew older. Confidence helped Malcolm become the idealized person many people remember today from the positive reinforcement he received his entire life. Malcolm's father demonstrated internalized racism towards Malcolm and his siblings by entitling Malcolm's lighter skin. Luckily for Malcolm, he got his self-esteem from his father's words, in that a hero was formed. Piccola experiences the opposite effect, as her confidence is diminished from her negative and racist surroundings. Piccola is told that she is ugly from the color of her dark skin, in which she soon comes to believe. As we saw, Piccola eventually is shaped into the person that goes insane due to her personal beliefs of not being good enough. Morrison's The Bluest Eye establishes that the way one views an individual influences the way that individual views themselves. However, through willingness to accept one's identity, this is changeable. Through the acknowledgement of Polly's tooth, the dandelions, and Claudia's character, Morrison successfully emphasizes the issue of internalized racism. Although this issue is still present in today's society, through willingness to accept one's identity, this issue is avoidable. To conclude, every individual is beautiful just the way they are. Their love for their qualities, not their race or their skin color.